And I found myself working most every evening, because that's when customers wanted me to come take a look at their stuff, was when they got home from work, when they were off. If I wanted to knock doors and actually be effective, I needed to go do it on Saturdays, while my wife and all of our friends were wanting to get together and do stuff. And this isn't here to tell you you need to live your life one way or another, or work certain times or not. You guys should be the ones making those decisions. But for me, I felt like I wasn't in charge of what I was doing. I was just chasing. I've got to do it this way because that's the way that everybody else is doing it. And through knocking doors, buying leads, all that sort of stuff, everything kind of had drawbacks to it. And that's everything in life, right? There's positives and negatives, but one of those drawbacks was if I was knocking someone's door, and I was in Denver, a very competitive market, if I'm knocking on their door, there's probably 30 other guys knocking on that same door. If I've had customers tell me they'd kept a tally sheet and they had over 100 people knock on their door, right? 100 different people. Usually, one of those 30 people were going to eat a deductible. They were going to upgrade their shingle for free. There was just a lot of drawbacks where even if I would spend the time to inspect their property, write an estimate, sometimes even sign our contingency agreement, meet with the adjuster, there was a decent amount of the time that those people would call me back and go, hey, we decided to go with somebody else. Am I going to pursue that? Am I going to take them to court over a $15,000 roof that we haven't built yet? No, you just chalk it up, you move on, right? But when that happens to 20, 30, 40% of the people that you're working with, that's a lot of time that you're not getting paid for. If you think about the way that you're getting paid and break it down hourly, if you look at those $0 an hour hours, they kill your average. And for most of the world outside of our industry, they're used to either a salary, which they can break down pretty easily into an hourly, or an hourly. And and those people look at, okay, I'm making $20 an hour, $50 an hour, whatever that is. You start averaging in some free hours, and your numbers tank. So I'm pretty analytical. I like to look at the numbers, and I like to understand what's happening in everything that I do. And I started to go through and analyze my numbers for all of my lead sources. And I started looking at, okay, all the time that I'm spending knocking doors just to find that customer, all the time that I'm driving to that telemarketing lead, all the time that I'm meeting with those customers that I either sell or don't, all the time that I'm meeting with the adjusters that I either get to build that roof or I don't, all the time that I'm, even with the customers that you build, all the time that I'm spending managing that project and helping the customer pick out colors and supplementing the claim and doing all that sort of stuff, what is my hourly baking down to? And, thankfully roofing is a really great opportunity. There's a really good money there if you are willing to work and to learn and to focus. And most everything that I was doing as I went through those numbers, I was making about $50 an hour. I had one of my friends, a guy that I went to church with, who was an insurance agent. He was a broker and represented some pretty good carriers. And it wasn't, there was very few that were like Chubb and stuff like that. But they had some good carriers that paid pretty well. And I was a roofer. He was an insurance agent. He started referring his customers to me. And he knew, hey, I needed to make some money. He knew I wasn't going to do these people wrong. He knew that I, cared about the quality of what I was doing. So, and again, we were friends. I'd known the guy for 20 years. His best friend and my sister had dated when they were teenagers. I started crunching the numbers on the handful of jobs that I had from him. And those customers that came to me that had been working with him as their broker, they trusted him. And so when he told them, Matt's the guy, he can take care of your roof, I sold almost everybody. If they needed a roof, I was the guy. It was very, very rare that they ended up getting another bid or going with another bid. The carriers that they worked with paid out really well. And I'm pretty good at understanding how to document stuff, how to supplement, how to negotiate without negotiating, right? Not a PA, but knowing how to do that song and dance to get them to pay for stuff. But when you start off with a good carrier, everything's easier. When you've got an adjuster that has the authority to pay the claim and actually has been trained on how to properly estimate it and understands that things like starter and ridge need to be paid for and they're not just lumped in with shingles, those claims, you're looking at a difference between them coming out with their estimate at a 35% margin or them coming out with their estimate at a 55% margin. And those numbers, which if you're looking at gross margins, are cool, but when you bake that down, when you start paying all your expenses, the difference between that 35 and 55 is not 20%. It's when you net out that 35, you may be netting 10%. When you net out that 55, you're netting 30%. So you're making 3 times as much money far more often without the wasted time. So all those things kind of compound together. And this is my math trick. So I'm trying to compete with his math tricks. It's not gonna ever get there. But looking at those numbers, I was making about $500 an hour. And that was like a slap in the face to me. To think that I was making 10 times as much money in one area as I was everywhere else. That $500 an hour made up a small amount of the time that I was spending. But it lit a fire under me. I need to figure out how to replicate that. I need to figure out how to scale that so that I can spend as many of my hours as possible making $500 an hour. And stop wasting time on things that end up not paying.